All right. Let's go on here. All right. All right. Did I get everyone back? All right. Put a 1 in the chat if you can hear me. All right. Token piece. Woo. Man, overload of my system. Let me just send out the notifications real quick. Wow, my whole system's going wonky. What the heck? Okay. Updated link. Paste. There we go. All right. Can y'all hear me? Can y'all see me? Let's see. Updated link. Paste. There we go. Whew. I can text you on the comments. Can you hear me? If you can, put a 1. Sounds like I'm inside a microwave. Uh-oh. Dang it. I might have to reschedule. I can see fine, but cannot comment. I can see your comments. All the comments will be in the chat here. I'm going to try to start the audio and tell me if you guys can hear it, okay?
All right, the first thing I have to do is read this preamble. I'm Sergeant Justin Wall of the Orange County Sheriff's Office Professional Standards Section. Today's date is May 19th, 2021, and the current time is 9:05 a.m. This interview is being conducted at the private residence. Address on file. I'm interviewing. Can you state your name for me?
Sandy Carpenter.
And what is your rank and assignment?
Captain of the Orange County Sheriff's Office Traffic Division.
Captain Carpenter, are you aware that I'm recording this interview?
Yes, I am.
Has anyone threatened, coerced, or offered you any preferential treatment to give this statement?
No.
Are you under the influence of drugs or alcohol that may impair your testimony?
No.
Can you raise your right hand? Place you under oath. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're to provide will be true and correct?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, real quick, this is Captain Sandy Carpenter. Now, Sandy Carpenter is the captain over the motor unit, and he's the one who gave the order through the undersheriff and sheriff to stop pursuing Jeremy Dewitte. And he's actually going to talk about it. This is a really, really good one here. Really, really good. So pay close attention. Let me know what you guys think in the comments as we go, okay?
All right. And as we kind of briefly discussed, I'm conducting an investigation into some allegations that were brought forward by Mr. Jeremy Dewitte, and you may have information about that, so that's the reason why I'm here to talk to you. What is your current rank and your general responsibilities at the Sheriff's Office?
The captain over traffic, and I've got anything from dignitary details when the presidents are in town, or a dignitary to the daily school crossings or what have you that deputies have to respond to.
Okay. And it's my understanding you're out on light duty or I'm sorry, actually, I have no duty status right now. So when did that start?
About February the 12th or 15th, I believe. I had a heart issue and had to deal with that.
And so since that date, you have not been back to work?
I have not responded to emails. I've done nothing that could cause stress.
Okay. So with that being the case, did you have any involvement in the arrest of Mr. Dewitte on March 23rd, 2021?
No, sir.
So Mr. Dewitte was arrested for carrying a weapon. The charge then for Mr. Dewitte carrying a pepper ball in his gun holster. In case you weren't familiar, I know that there's been some ongoing stuff. Are you aware of any discussions in the past about Mr. Dewitte carrying a pepper ball gun in a holster in his uniform, and whether or not that was illegal or legal? Do you remember any discussions about that?
There's been several discussions over the past year or so about a pepper ball gun that looks like a handgun. Discussions about, because of we had a intel bulletin at one point that I think indicated Mr. Dewitte could be a suicide by cop individual, something along those lines. It was something about how he might go out or something. I don't recall what the whole thing was about. That's been a good year and a half or so ago.
Were those discussions with Sergeant Vidler or Corporal Ramsey?
Yes.
Was there anything specific to, I understand about the bulletin, but was there anything specific about the legality of whether or not he could or could not carry a pepper ball gun?
They argued that because he was a sexual offender or whatever, that he was not allowed to carry any type of weapon or firearm or what have you. And we discussed the fact that it was a pepper ball gun. At one point, our discussions reached the level that unless they saw him literally violating Florida state statute in regard to funeral escorts, that they would call patrol and let patrol take over the responsibilities of whether in fact Mr. Dewitte was in.
Okay, so that's a little bit interesting right there, right? So they were supposed to call patrol instead of handling it themselves, and they discussed the legality of a pepper ball gun. Now, I don't know if it's this way where you guys live, but here in California, if you're carrying anything that resembles a weapon and it doesn't have those markings on it, you can go to jail for a concealed weapon. That's how it is in California. Let me know down in the chat if it's like that where you guys are from.
Violation of Florida state statute for carrying a weapon or firearm is a convicted felon.
And they would call patrol?
Yes.
Why was that?
There came a point in the investigation where I realized that Mr. Dewitte might allege that they were targeting him individually because they were the cops that were always involved.
Okay.
Not taking away from their investigation, they were assigned to do an investigation on those illegal funeral escorts, and they are in fact illegal. There's a simple way the statute reads.
Okay.
So, being assigned that, it was always Vidler and Ramsey that were dealing with Mr. Dewitte. Every patrol deputy out there has it within their power to enforce that statute or enforce that law. But what I found was that they were constantly calling Sergeant Vidler, as directed by one of the intel bulletins that had gone out. Said that if you had doubt, contact Vidler. So he was constantly being bombarded with Jeremy Dewitte. So I didn't want there to be the appearance or the anything that looked improper for the agency as far as it always being the same two guys that had to deal with Jeremy Dewitte, and was trying to, through some of our other things that we put out, educate an agency on what you can do and what you can't do involving funeral escorts.
Okay. So was that a direction from you?
Yes.
Okay. Are you aware of an email from General Counsel Austin Moore to Sergeant Vidler in May of 2019? I know this is going back, advising that there was nothing illegal about Metro State employees openly carrying pepper ball guns.
I don't recall, but that was probably because of part of the discussion that we were having. I don't recall that directly, but we did have discussions about. I believe that Austin did not feel like it was a violation of Florida state statute, but we did have the continuing saga of knowing, in fact, whether it is a pepper ball gun or is it a firearm.
Okay.
And that just because he carries the pepper ball gun today and we identified it and we know it's a pepper ball gun, how do we know that tomorrow it's the same pepper ball gun? So I can see the argument both ways. And that was one of the reasons that I told the sergeant and the corporal, let's teach patrol how this should be handled, A, and B, anytime y'all come in contact with Jeremy Dewitte from this point on, and I don't know what that date was, but my lieutenant was taking notes that day, who's since retired, and he says he still has those notes. I said, anytime in the future we come into contact with Mr. DeWitt, we will file with the state attorney that was, and I can't think of the guy's name, but we had a state attorney that was assigned to Mr. DeWitt. So in the future, we will contact that state attorney before we make an arrest, and we will file appropriate charges to be added to what was already a list of.
Was that a directive by you?
Yes.
And when was that?
I can't give you a date. I can say it's probably within the last year, and that came, there's always these conspiracy theories that somebody was shutting down the investigation. I didn't shut down. It's easy to use the term shutting down an investigation. We didn't shut down an investigation. What we did was ask them to get their paperwork together, get their case together, because that's what they were doing, was working a case on Mr. DeWitt, get the entire package put together by a certain date. And we're going to get that into the state attorney so they can do what they need to do.
Okay, so the directives from you within the last year, just to be clear,
Yes.
were to file
Yes.
charges.
Contact the state attorney's office and don't arrest Mr. DeWitt without contacting me.
Okay.
Because even in the last charge, I've heard very little about it, and I stayed out of that because I don't need the stress.
And you haven't been working.
I haven't been working, but if I had been working, Sergeant Vidler would have called me because of that directive, and I would have said, either call the state attorney and ask him whether we need to make an arrest, or if we just file this with the other charges. He even has,
Okay.
I don't want to talk about that yet.
So, are you aware of either from reviewing body cam video or anything else of Sergeant Vidler in particular interacting with Mr. DeWitt numerous times while Mr. DeWitt was wearing a pepper ball gun on his uniform? Are you aware of that?
I know I've seen videos, I've watched videos to make sure that Sergeant Vidler's tone was appropriate, because people complain that he yells at them or what have you, so I reviewed a lot of videos.
Anything specific to him Sergeant Vidler interacting with Mr. DeWitt?
No, and
while wearing a pepper ball gun?
No, and I purposely have not watched the latest videos.
Okay. I'm just trying to understand if there's something that changed, because there is video numerous times, Sergeant Vidler and Mr. DeWitt interacting, and Mr. DeWitt has a pepper ball gun on his side in uniform. So I'm just trying to understand if there was anything that changed from those circumstances to this arrest.
Not to my knowledge, but the direction was that it appears to be a pepper ball gun, and if we know for a fact it's a pepper ball gun, it's not a violation.
Okay.
But again, to the cop's defense, to the cop side of that, you don't know from one day to another, because that gun looks so similar to a handgun. And Mr. DeWitt himself said that he wants to look like law enforcement to gain respect. That's why he carries that particular.
Has he said that to you, or you
he said that
through the
he said that in a video during the investigation.
Okay, during the investigation.
Yes.
And so you've mentioned a couple of times an ongoing investigation involving Sergeant Vidler, Corporal Ramsey, into Mr. DeWitt. Did you assign this investigation to Sergeant Vidler?
No. You mean back at the very beginning?
Correct.
I wouldn't say that I assigned it to him. The way that the investigation came about is when I first took over the motors unit. I literally had just taken over the traffic section, and I was at McGuire and 50, and I heard sirens, and yes, I did hear sirens. I know what I heard. I remember the day. And I thought our guys were running a motorcade or running a funeral escort that I hadn't been advised of. And I walked out to the edge of Highway 50 and McGuire Road to see what we were doing, because it was apparent to me it were motorcycles or some type of escort, the way they were doing a bump and run with their horns and with a siren. And I walked out the edge of the road and I saw this group that I'd never seen before doing what we do in a presidential escort. And I wondered, who are they and what are they? And I saw Metro State Services. I saw a motorcycle pull into the intersection of McGuire and 50 and take over the intersection, just like we would during a presidential escort. And then that vehicle was relieved by a Chevy Tahoe that was black and white. They held the intersection while the funeral went through the light, made the turn, and went over to, I believe, Woodlawn Cemetery. I called Sergeant Bidler on the phone and I said, who's this group and why are they taking over intersections and doing what looks like a presidential escort, moving people off the road? Because they, in fact, moved people off the road. And I knew that they were in violation if they weren't truly a state agency. And I called Sergeant Bidler, and he gave me the lowdown on who Metro State was, and that they had been told to leave them alone, quote unquote.
When was this?
This is a good 2 to 3 years ago. When I first took over the unit, I mean, it was probably within my first month there. So whatever month I took over the traffic section is when I made that phone call, Sergeant Bidler. So when I was told that we were told to leave it alone, I said, you cannot stand back and watch violation of Florida state statute and do nothing with it when it involves public safety. You took an oath to uphold those particular statutes. So I'm not telling you to go look for this group, but I'm saying in the future, that type of behavior, if y'all run across that, he needs to be dealt with when he's in violation of Florida state statute.
So you gave a directive to Sergeant Bidler.
Yes.
If you run across them, you see them.
You run across them, look at this group, we need to deal with them because they are doing illegal activity.
Okay, so then this subsequent ongoing investigation initiated.
Yes.
And so would it be fair to say that Sergeant Bidler was sort of the lead in that investigation?
Yes, he was the expert, and he schooled me. Even as a captain, because you move from spot to spot. He schooled me on what Florida state statute said about funeral escorts, and confirmed for me that they were in violation of Florida state statute.
Okay. So during that investigation, were you ever made aware of Sergeant Bidler contacting insurance companies, private insurance companies?
He reached out to the state. He reached out to a state investigator who said that he was in violation because he didn't have insurance and because he did not have workers' comp.
Okay.
That snowballed into having to reach out to other insurance companies to prove whether, in fact, he had insurance as a commercial carrier or were his vehicles just insured.
Okay. Is that common practice in the motor unit?
It's not. Well, one of the things that we did look at is the fact that the motors unit back then, we weren't actively working some of the things that we needed to be working, like the racer detail, the group that comes to town that does large-scale motorcycle events during the day where they take over. You probably remember the one that went through Dewitte where they pulled a woman out of her car. Those types of things were assigned to us, and I was told we need to investigate those things more. The motor section doesn't do a lot of investigation.
Okay.
So
you were told that those needed to be investigated?
Yes.
Who told you that?
Major Anzueto. When I first came in, he asked me why we didn't do more investigations.
Okay. And he suggested that you should do more investigations, or
he suggested that we needed to up our game. We needed to do more than just go out and write traffic tickets and do school crossings,
okay.
which was, to Major Anzueto's defense, our stats were low. We didn't really, we weren't producing the numbers that we could have been producing because of a lot of different factors. Just like with the DUI squad, when you got Uber and Lyft, DUI numbers went way, way down. Didn't mean my guys weren't working. Simply meant people were getting rides home for free.
Okay. So as a practice in the motor unit, it's not necessarily a common practice to contact insurance companies. Is that what I'm getting? But that
It wouldn't be a common practice, except for the fact at some point you'd have to ask Keith which one came first, the chicken or the egg. But it would be once you talk to that insurance investigator who said, hey, he has to have commercial insurance, he has to have this rider, he has to have this policy, and it can't be for him individually. It has to be for a commercial company through a registered corporation.
Okay. Were you ever aware of Sergeant Bidler contacting private businesses that are clients of Mr. Dewitte's companies? So Mr. Dewitte has funeral escort companies that he works with and tow truck companies. Were you ever aware of Sergeant Bidler contacting those companies in regards to, with the intention of
not
disrupting his business?
Not tow truck companies and not to disrupt the business, but he did in fact meet with, two things. He met with one, funeral homes to find out if they were insured so that there was something to protect the citizen, because we had allegations and we had evidence from a Winter Park case that his agency, his business, was involved in some vehicle accidents. And we were trying to determine, Sergeant Bidler was trying to determine whether in fact they had umbrella policies that would cover Mr. DeWitte's behavior because they hired Mr. DeWitte. If you follow what I'm saying.
Do you know what funeral home that was?
I want to say Dignity or Woodlawn is the one that jumps out at me. The other side of that was funeral homes and security companies. Sergeant Bidler was directed to reach out to Curtis Protective Services. Because I explained to Sergeant Bidler, I said, look, I've received 2 complaints on Curtis. So I don't want Jeremy DeWitte to feel like he's the only service in town that is looked at when they violate Florida state statute. You need to contact Mr. Curtis, because I've been called twice now about, and in one case it was in the city of Orlando, them taking over a one-way street to go to a church that was right behind OPD headquarters.
And that was unrelated
to
Mr. DeWitte's business. That was
exactly
another investigation.
That is Curtis Protective Services, and we met with the man that's named, they call him Chief, that owns the company.
Okay. So some of these things that I'm mentioning, and you kind of alluded to it, so I just want to go back to it. The fact that it could be perceived because Sergeant Bidler and Corporal Ramsey were interacting with Mr. DeWitte, one could perceive that they were being targeted, or that this was somehow personal.
Right.
Do you know of any ill will from Sergeant Bidler or Corporal Ramsey towards
None
State or Mr. DeWitte?
None whatsoever. And if you look at some of the videos that I had to review, you do hear a mentoring from Sergeant Bidler in the very beginning stages of this thing to explain to Jeremy how to handle a funeral escort by statute and what he can do and he can't do. And they had those conversations on 2 or 3 different videos. And I'm like, okay, we have to keep telling the same individual repeatedly how to do it lawfully. Then one of his employees provided us with a video where he basically said, he knows what he's doing is illegal, but this is how they're going to do it to get around the law or get around the statute, which was kind of like the icing on the cake when you're trying to put a case together and you keep telling the same individual over and over and over again what the definition of Florida state statute is, and he keeps going outside Florida state statute.
And just to be clear, you know about these things because did Sergeant Bidler keep you updated on a regular basis?
He was directed at one point that if you deal with Jeremy DeWitte, you will make sure that I'm in the know and that I know what's going on, because it was.
Real quick, guys, you guys might be in for a treat. I might redo this live and make this one private. That way, we can get everybody into it. But I might play a little extra footage here that nobody else he's going to get to hear for a while. So buckle in, folks.
It was becoming a little obvious to me that they were not going to the lieutenant with everything that they should have taken to the lieutenant. There were too many gaps. So at one point I said,
If you say lieutenant, you mean?
The motor's lieutenant. Yeah, I've been gone since February. I can't believe that. Cal Wacker. They weren't keeping Cal up to speed on everything that he needed to be up to speed on. And I said, from now on, you talk to Jeremy Dewitte about violation of Florida State statute, you call me.
Okay. And so that kind of brings me to my next question. Did you give any orders? Well, I think we established that you did give orders regarding dealing with Metro State and Mr. Dewitte. So did you ever give any orders to stop conducting criminal investigation into Metro State?
They were advised to wrap up an investigation, get it to the state attorney, get the charges filed, and let's get him arrested.
When was that?
I can't give you the date. It was a good year and a half ago. I mean, it was. And there's an email out there that says you directed us to close or stop or something the investigation that Jeremy Dewitte posted on his webpage, and that came from either Vidler or Ramsey, and that's not a factual. They were not ordered to stop an investigation. They were ordered to finish their investigation, get it to the state attorney, and let the state attorney file charges if he was going to, because we weren't getting follow-up.
Did you, were you aware if that actually took place, they concluded their investigation?
Yes, they concluded their investigation.
Did you give any, were there any standing orders after that regarding Metro State?
Just to contact me if they came in contact with Mr. Dewitte for any reason that I needed to know what was going on, so I could keep whoever my major was at the time, I could make sure the major was aware of it and nobody got blindsided. Because Mr. Dewitte would make allegations that were sometimes substantial about law enforcement.
Okay. And so those orders that you gave, did those come from someone else?
They really come from somebody else, but Major Anzueto and myself talked, and I said in the future, when Major Anzueto and I first met, I said to him, I see my job as a captain is making sure you don't get blindsided. I will bombard you with emails or call you about events that occur so that when you sit down at the table on Monday or Friday, you know what's going on. When it came to Mr. Dewitte, I doubly ensured that anything that we had involvement with Jeremy Dewitte, I could make sure the lieutenant or the major was aware of so he didn't get blindsided.
Okay. So I just want to be clear. So the orders after they were ordered to conclude their investigation, the orders after that, were there any orders to not have any interaction with Metro State after that?
No, to the contrary, they were told don't go out looking for Jeremy Dewitte. We have other cases we have to work. We have other things that we have to focus on.
Okay.
We have presidential visits. We have vaccine sites. We have it all. And they were also told this to Major Anzueto's credit. Major Anzueto said, if Jeremy Dewitte pulls in front of me running an illegal escort, I'll take him to jail. I'm not saying don't take the guy to jail. Major Anzueto never said that. He said, if you see him doing an escort and they block an intersection right in front of you, take him to jail.
So if you see him...
Now, we all know that's not true, right?
Violating any state statutes, you can take action.
Yes.
But don't seek him to
don't seek him out. And as a matter of fact, Keith, the direction was, if you have the opportunity to call patrol and let patrol deal with that. We had a point where he had a warrant for his arrest out of Osceola County, and they thought that he might be coming up to Orange County for something. And I said, you know what? Call Osceola County and tell him that he's got a warrant. He's now living in Osceola County, from what we understood.
Okay.
Well, Osceola County, they have a warrant in their county.
And so that direction, did that come from you to Sergeant Miller?
Yes.
And you remember when?
No, I don't have the idea. I just know that he was picked up on that warrant 2 days after that.
Okay. And just to confirm, it was prior to obviously you going out on leave.
Yes, it was probably months before that.
Okay.
6 months or so.
All right. Is there anything else that you know about this investigation you'd like to add?
No, sir.
Okay. The current current time is 9:30 a.m. and that concludes this interview.
All right, we're going to get more, so don't go away, folks. Do not leave. I've got more to come. All right, so we are going to take a chat poll. Chat poll, chat poll. I've got a bunch of interviews. As all my diehards are here. I had to abandon that first stream, and it wouldn't let me reopen it back up, so you guys know how that goes. So you're going to get another video, and you get to choose. I think it was Sarnow76 was asking me to play Whacker. If you guys want to hear Lieutenant Calvin Whacker, the full interview, let me know in the chat. Just put a W. I've also got Sergeant Ellis Mitchell, Meister Tolliver, Michael Werner, Michael Filotu. I don't know how to say that. We've got Adrian Hernandez, which was the other guy on the motorcycle with Jeremy. So when Jeremy got arrested that last time they were talking about with the pepperball gun, Adrian Hernandez was the other guy that was working with him and on the other motorcycle when he got pulled over. So let's see. Okay, Red Duck says Whacker. The rest of Whacker, cut it off before the end. What do you think, Ron? You think Whacker's it? I think that's consensus so far. All right, don't forget to like. And Whacker, yeah. Okay, let's do it. You guys want to start from the beginning? Let me see how long it is. Oh, you're making it hard for me to go pick up the kids. I'll be back in a few. Okay, yeah, go pick up the kids. Don't leave them at school. But I'll leave this up for at least a couple hours. That way, whoever wants to watch it can. I mean, if it ends up blowing up and doing really well, then I might just leave it up. But for now, you guys are going to get a little treat. So let's go back to Whacker, and we're going to watch the whole, or listen to the whole thing from Calvin Whacker. What a name, huh? All right, let's see how long the old Whacker file is. Oh, it's a long one, 43 minutes. All right, let's go ahead and start it. If you guys want me to fast forward any, just let me know. Just say, hey, Josh, fast forward, FF, whatever, however you want to say it. Or, don't say anything. I'll just let it keep going. All right. 3, 2, 1. You're back with True Crime Phenomenon for next video.
I'm Sergeant Justin Wall of the Orange County Sheriff's Office Professional Standards Section. Today's date is May 10th, 2021, and the current time is 10:54 a.m. This interview is being conducted at the Office of Professional Standards located at 2500 West Colonial Drive. I'm interviewing. Can you state your rank and name for me?
Lieutenant Calvin Whacker.
Okay. Lieutenant Whacker, are you aware that I'm recording this interview?
Yes, sir.
Has anyone threatened, coerced, or offered you any preferential treatment to give this statement?
No, sir.
Are you under the influence of drugs or alcohol that may impair your testimony?
No, sir.
Raise your right hand so I can swear you in. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're to provide will be true and correct?
I do.
All right. So as we briefly discussed, I'm conducting an investigation into an administrative investigation into Sergeant Bidler and Corporal Ramsey in regards to their conduct with Mr. Jeremy Dewitte. First off, what's your current rank and your responsibilities?
I'm the lieutenant of the motors unit.
And were those your responsibilities on March 23rd, 2021?
Yes, sir.
Were you aware that Sergeant Bidler had made an arrest on Mr. Dewitte on March 23rd?
Yes, sir. He called me.
Were you present for the arrest?
No, sir.
Were you present at the office later on when Mr. Dewitte was brought back to the Sector 4 substation?
No, sir.
How did you become aware? You said he called you.
Called me. Standard operating procedure with Metro State has been since day one. Called the captain. Captain put it upstairs, and then it came back down. So I called acting captain Crab. Said that Bidler had arrested him on I-4. Crab asked me to have Bidler write him an email so he could forward it up to the major, I believe. And I called Vidler back. I said, when you get a chance, send me an email that states your PC and all that other stuff. I went over to Harley Davidson and talked to Rob, the mechanic over there. Some time passed. I never got the email. So I called Vidler. I said, where's the email? He said, I'm with Crab. And I said, okay, well then don't worry about it. And that's kind of the end of mine. I went to lunch with Rob Crane and Yuri Melich right after that. And everything else that happened, I found out about the next day, I guess, for the most part.
So when did you first become aware about the arrest? Did Sergeant Vidler call you?
He called me.
Did he call you on the traffic stop or after?
He just called me and said, I've just arrested Jeremy Dewitte.
Okay.
I think that was his words, but yeah.
Okay. Did you get the impression he was still on the traffic stop?
Yes.
Okay. So what did he tell you the charges were?
I don't know that I asked. Oh, he said Karen.
I've got Crab, by the way.
Okay.
I've got Michael Crab interview that we can play as well.
Did he kind of describe you the circumstances or his PC?
No, he just told me. I said, "Are you alone up there?" Or he said, "No, Reeves is with me."
Okay. So he didn't go into.
No, sir.
Here's.
No.
He said carrying concealed weapon, but he didn't tell you his actual circumstances behind how he reached that.
If he did, it was brief, but I don't remember that conversation if we had it.
I got Reeves as well.
He may have told me he was, and I may have learned this afterwards too, that he was going up I-4. He saw two Metro State bikes. He looked at the one and he saw what appeared to be a handgun in the holster, and he stopped him.
Okay. So were you aware at that time when you first talked to him on the traffic stop that the weapon he was referring to was a pepper ball gun?
No, sir.
Yep.
But you knew it wasn't a firearm, right? He said carrying concealed weapon specifically. It wasn't carrying concealed firearm charge, right?
I remember him saying carrying concealed weapon. As has been standard operating procedure, I said, well, I got to run it up because it's Dewitte. So I think I disconnected and I called Crab and told him.
Okay. So do you believe there's probable cause based on what Sergeant Vidler told you?
During the traffic stop?
Probable cause
Now
for the arrest?
or when?
At the time of the traffic stop when he first explained to you what was going on.
I didn't question him about the probable cause.
Okay. He just told you I have PC for,
He said I arrested him for carrying a concealed weapon.
Okay. So you said after that you went to lunch. Did you ever go back to the Sector 4 substation when they were conducting an interview?
No. I don't think I found out about the interview until the following morning when we were doing the funeral escort.
Okay.
Because I didn't talk to, the only conversation I had after that was that I think Crab called me in the afternoon and said, hey, you're having Vidler on arrest. And I said, oh, okay. And then that following morning I found out that they called back supposedly. So what I'm getting from Crab, that they said, don't worry about unarresting him, he's bonding out. And then I found out the next morning he was still in jail because Osceola, I guess, had put a hold on him or something like that. So that's,
okay.
But the interview and stuff, I didn't know that was conducted until the following morning.
Okay. So as Sergeant Vidler's supervisor, did you question him further as to anything about the probable cause for the arrest, or you just took his word for it?
No, I took his word for it, and when he told me that he was with Crab at the office, I assumed that DeWitte was in jail. He was doing his paperwork at the office, and then he had briefed him in face to face.
Okay. So did you have any part in reviewing any statutes, case law, jury instructions, anything before Mr. DeWitte was booked into jail?
No.
With Mr. Vidler or Sergeant Vidler or
no.
Rick Crab or anybody?
No.
Okay. Did you ever see the pepper ball gun, physically see it?
That'd be a picture.
Okay. But not the actual gun.
That would have been a few days later too.
Okay. So seeing the pepper ball gun in the holster, a picture of it, do you believe that meets the definition of a concealed weapon?
I believe later on, I was shown the jury instructions on a concealed weapon. Then you also have to realize that Dewitte's a convicted felon. So, I mean, I'd have to go into it deeper, but yeah, because here's how we used to differentiate between Dewitte and their weapons. All his weapons used to have a CO2 cartridge, silver one, it stuck out of the butt plate of here, and this one did not. And I don't know what kind of projectiles this one fired or anything like that, because like I said, I didn't see the weapon itself.
Okay.
I was just told it was a pepper ball gun.
Okay. But do you believe, you said afterwards, you said you reviewed the jury instructions?
I think Keith showed them to me when there started to be some questions. It might have been during the funeral when we were waiting.
The day after.
And he said, these are the jury instructions. Yeah. And I read them, and yeah, it kind of fits into the jury instructions as to what a concealed firearm is. Because you have no way of differentiating between what's in that holster. To me, it looks like open carry, because it could be an open carry weapon, and that may have been a better charge. I don't know. But, you know, the weapon's concealed, and you don't know it's a pepper ball gun until, you know. I'll tell you what, if he pulled it on me, I'd shoot him.
Yeah, and I don't know that.
There's no way to differentiate between that firearm and a real firearm.
Okay. So that was kind of what you discussed about the concealed part of it.
We never.
Can you? I guess.
We really never discussed it. I think because Sergeant Vidler was being questioned about PC and told to unarrest. I think that's how we got in the conversation, and I think
was the following day.
Following day, or maybe the day after. Yeah, it wasn't the day of.
Okay.
Like I said, other than the call from Capt saying they just ordered us to unarrest him. That was all. That's the only thing that I had to do with any of it after initially calling Capt and telling him.
Okay.
And telling Keith.
But my question is, like, here's a firearm in a holster, right? Yep. Is this concealed?
Per the jury instructions, yeah.
Based on what?
You read the jury instructions. It says that.
I have them actually.
Well, it basically says there's something in there that basically says that the weapon does not have to be totally concealed to be a concealed weapon, which means if you've got it under your coat and someone sees it, that's technically concealed. I think it's this big one.
I think it's this paragraph here. Ordinary sight.
Yeah. The term ordinary sight of another person means that casual or ordinary observation of another unless not be completely hidden for you to find that it was concealed.
Well, how about the next sentence?
However, a weapon is not concealed if, although not fully exposed, its status as a weapon is detectable as an ordinary observation. I'll there it down. However, a weapon is not concealed if, although not fully exposed, its status as a weapon is detectable by ordinary observation. Okay, so I'm a civilian on the street. No, maybe open carry would be a better term, but you cannot distinguish that between whether it's firearm or not.
Okay. And I'm just trying to understand, what the discussion was.
Like I said, there was no discussion between me or anybody else after the fact. I was just, I got the information from him that he arrested him for concealed weapon. Standard operating procedure from day one on this case was anything that happens goes to the captain goes to the major. Where it went from there, I don't know. Okay. And then a decision would come back down. This one came a little late.
Okay. So,
real quick here, I have Major Hosey, Major Anzueto, which I've already released, Lieutenant Olson, Lieutenant McCulloch, Lieutenant Crabb, Lieutenant Wacker, which we're listening to, Deputy Sean Sahibi, David Booker, Corporal Ramsey, Larry Zweig, listening to Sandy Carpenter already, Stephen Foster, Under Sheriff Canty, which we listened to, got Vidlers, Ellis Mitchell, Jessica Suarez Vargas, what that is, Todd De Giuseppe, Robert Stevens, Meister Tolliver, Michael Warner, Michael Filatow, Adrian Hernandez, Choke, Adam Ayed. That's who I got. So we got a lot more to come.
Just to be clear, before Mr. DeWitte's booked into jail, you didn't review these jury instructions?
No.
This was all after?
No. I took Sergeant Vidler's on his word that he was carrying a concealed weapon. Never really questioned it other than it was the gun, maybe. But DeWitte's people have been known to carry regular firearms because I think way back in the beginning, one of them was arrested for carrying it. Although he had a license as a security person to carry it, DeWitte doesn't have the license to allow him to carry it. So he was arrested for that. That was one. I actually think that was probably the first time that we got. Vidler and them got re-involved in it.
Okay. So are you aware of an email sent from General Counsel Austin Moore to Sergeant Vidler in May of 2019, advising that there was nothing illegal about Metro State employees openly carrying pepperball guns?
I'd have to go through all the emails I saved, but I don't recall that off the top of my head.
Okay. Were you aware that during the arrest of Mr. DeWitte and during Corporal Ramsey's subsequent interview, Mr. DeWitte had asserted that he had this email, which obviously contradicted the charges against him?
I'm going to be honest with you. There wasn't a lot of emails during this entire investigation. When I would ask for an email from my captain, I would basically be told, that's public record. It's going to be public record if we do that. We can't do it in emails. So there wasn't a lot. I think I kind of went through, I can go get my computer if you want, but I saved everything that was DeWitte related. Most of it's between Ramsey and all that, and it's just, when they're going to do this, when they're going to do that.
Okay.
There is one from Austin Moore in there, but I didn't read it.
Okay.
So I don't know what it is, but I can go get the computer. You can look at it if you want.
And probably after the interview, you can take a look and see if there's anything that you find relevant.
Right.
But specifically, there is an email from Austin Moore to Sergeant Vidler advising that there's nothing illegal about Metro State openly carrying pepperball guns. So you weren't aware of that email?
Not that I'm aware of. If I got it, I'll look. I'll put it that way. But like I said, there wasn't a lot of email. Let me explain something.
Yeah.
This investigation started. Sandy Carpenter was going direct to Ramsey, direct to Vidler, and I wasn't really in the loop. They would have meetings with Anzueto, Zweig, and all of that, and I would ask Ramsey and Vidler what was said in the meeting. Basically, those are meetings giving them deadlines on their investigation. This is the initial investigation they started, giving them deadlines, and all I would do was make sure that they hit the deadline. As far as the only meeting that I can remember having was with Anzueto, and I couldn't tell you the date. It was the day that Vidler was going up to get some arrest warrants signed, and there was a question about a search warrant. Because Vidler had written 2 search warrants, one for DeWitte's house and one for the business. I was told that the attorney, Austin, told him there was no precedence for the search warrant, and he didn't see a precedent for him. And then he kind of, I think he went in and kind of said, this, that, and the other about the search warrant. I know Vidler rewrote the search warrant with his suggestions and had them. I came in one morning, Vidler and Ramsey were in their office working on the case. There was a conversation between Austin Moore and Keith, and I think they were talking about the arrest affidavits that he was going to get signed. I don't know if these are the first ones, second ones, third ones, fourth ones. I don't know. I think it might have been the first 2 that you're going to arrest, but I'm not positive. I listened to part of that conversation, and when Fiddler brought up the search warrant, which he had written for the business on South Orange Blossom Trail, Austin didn't say, don't get it signed. And he didn't say, don't serve it at that time. He says, I just don't see precedent. And that's the way I took it. When Fiddler went down to get those signed, I said, get them signed and get the search warrant signed. Then I got called over here to talk to Dewitte about it. And I told him they were on their way down to get it signed. And I told him that he was going to get that one search warrant signed. And Dewitte got a little upset, saying that Austin told him not to get any of the search warrants signed. And I said, you know, we won't serve a search warrant without your permission. But you had me put Dewitte's picture in all of these cubbies coming into the building because he had threatened during the investigation, supposedly had he come out, that he was going to, before you go back to jail, he was going to shoot up either the Orange County Sheriff's Office building or the Orlando Police Department. I said, you had me put them all up. If he barricades when they go to arrest him in that building, I said, my old SWAT background tells me they ain't going in without a search warrant. So I told him to get it signed. It won't be served unless you give us permission. And that's where that was left. And they got those signed and all that. But that's might have been off point of the. That
was a conversation with Dewitte?
Yes, sir.
And he gave you permission to serve him?
He did not. I just told him we will ask permission if we need to serve him or we think we need to. And we eventually served it like 2 or 3 days later.
Okay. All right. That was one of my questions. Is some part of the investigation, but I want to go back to the traffic stop real quick. So, were you ever made aware that during Mr. Dewitte's arrest that and the interview with Corporal Ramsey, that Mr. Dewitte had said, "I have this email from General Counsel Austin Moore"?
No.
Had you been made aware that Mr. Dewitte says, "I have this email saying I can carry a pepperball gun from your legal," would you have done anything differently? Would you have intervened?
I always thought it was a state.
Sorry, guys, I froze there for a second on my screen. And it's reloading, so hold on one moment while it reloads. Let's see.
Attorney's job to intervene, not staff attorneys, but not taking that away. Dewitte is known to, I'll tell you how Dewitte works, is if I stop him for a traffic violation, he'll tell me that Trooper so-and-so told him, he gets names all the time, said he could do this. And if Trooper so-and-so stops him, then he'll say Lieutenant Wacker said they do it. So I would take, unless he had it there to produce it right now, I would take it as a grain of salt.
Okay. Were you ever made aware that Mr. Dewitte had made multiple requests on the traffic stop and during the interview with Corporal Ramsey to speak with the lieutenant or captain? He asked 17 times on the traffic stop alone to speak with the lieutenant or captain.
I never knew that.
Okay.
I know it now because someone told me that he asked for me a bunch of times. But as soon as this kind of got cracking, I didn't even go and look at the body camera or none of the videos. I figured they'd be locked up by then anyway.
Okay, so given the circumstances surrounding the history between Sergeant Biller and Corporal Ramsey and Mr. Dewitte, do you believe that's something you should have been made aware of? Hey, he's asking for you.
Yeah, probably.
So if you had known about his request, would you have met with him?
I don't know that I'd have gone up onto I-4. But I don't know where they were. My biggest concern at that point was that Biller wasn't alone with him, that Reeves was with him. And that's what I was told. So.
Okay. Did you ever speak with Mr. Dewitte?
I spoke with Mr. Dewitte a day or two after when he wanted his property released. He left a message on my phone, and actually, I talked to him just prior to coming down here. Major Hosey wanted to meet with me and Rams, so I called him back, and of course he told me, this has been recording. It's my office. I found out later that he was in a car wash on his telephone, but he records everything. He says, you know, I want to get my property back. I said, it's been released, because I had told Biddle that morning, if it ain't released, release it, because we were unarrested him. And I told him it was released. He asked me about the motorcycle. I said, well, go down there, and if it's going to cost, you know, he said, who's paying for it? I said, go down there, and if they don't give it back to you without pay, contact the sheriff's office and work that out with them. Instead of doing that, he came down here to the bubble and demanded to see, I don't know who he demanded to see, a whole bunch of people. I know that because I was sitting in Hosey's office when he got the phone call that he was in there. Yeah, and I'd have to say between that time frame, he probably didn't go to see if he could get his motorcycle back. He just came down here to
But, so you never spoke, you only spoken with him after the arrest?
I spoke to him on the phone to get his property.
Right.
He had called and left a message.
At the time of his arrest, though?
No, I never talked to him that day. I'll be honest, I count on one hand how many times I've talked to Mr. Dewitte.
Okay.
Probably twice.
Do you know if any lieutenants or captains spoke with Mr. Dewitte that day?
I have no idea.
Okay. Did you review the body-worn camera of the traffic stop?
I did not.
You said you were not present for the subsequent interview by Corporal Ramsey. Did you watch that interview on the body-worn camera? Sorry,
I saw part of it. I'll put it that way. I saw part of it. I think one of the guys was watching it one morning, because I think that's on some website, and he was watching it. But I got better things to do than watch 200 interviews with.
Okay, in the portion that you saw
on some website
that concerned you.
No, it was kind of the beginning of it, I think.
All right. Other than what you've already discussed, what is your knowledge of the investigation with Sergeant Bither and Corporal Ramsey that they're working against Mr. Dewitte and Metro State?
You mean
I know you kind of went over
as far as
how much knowledge do you have of the investigation?
Of the charges that they brought against him and all that, or just, which one are you talking about?
The whole investigation.
Well, I was there from day one.
Okay.
But like I said, it was kind of between the captain, Ramsey, and Vidler.
Okay.
They would have meetings, and if there was a meeting above the captain, I never got invited to those.
Okay.
I can't recall one that I was at. I would get called into the captain's office every once in a while to, I don't know, more to, I don't want to say chew me out, but to make sure that Vidler and I got to be honest, I told Capt Carpenter at one point, I said, I'm taking direction from a sergeant and a corporal, because I am not privy to any of these meetings with anybody. It's you and them. And he get a little upset, and he wrote me up and gave me counseling for him for some other stuff after that. But yeah.
So, are you aware of Sergeant Bidler contacting insurance companies regarding Mr. Dewitte's personal or business insurance policy?
I think that was mentioned that they were, because during the initial investigation, he had no insurance on the vehicles, or it was somebody else's insurance. I don't know, but I think that was mentioned.
We got 20 minutes left, so buckle in, folks. 20 more minutes.
In passing with
Mentioned in what context?
that the insurance companies were looking at him for having either, he's running a business, but I think he had personal insurance. I don't know.
Okay, so were you aware that Sergeant
I
Bidler was
didn't
the
know
one
how
contacting?
I didn't know that. No, I mean, I knew that there was insurance companies were involved.
Okay.
IRS was involved. I mean, in the beginning, this was going to go RICO, this whole case.
Okay. Specifically with the insurance companies, is that common practice? You've been in the motor unit for how long?
Well, I don't know if it's common practice, in what aspect. I mean, if you mean I stopped
Pull
somebody
over for not having insurance.
to get the ticket taken away, or they take it to court and prove it in front of a judge.
Okay. Would you ever say it's common practice?
Investigation would be called common practice for the motor unit.
Okay.
I think it was just kind of, because it was traffic, they got,
Okay. Are you aware of Sergeant Bidler contacting private businesses that are clients of Mr. DeWitte's company? So Mr. DeWitte has a funeral service.
I believe they were, during the investigation, I think they were contacting some of the funeral homes or the people that were hiring him to try and get receipts and stuff to show whatever that was to show. But I think they contacted some of the funeral homes.
Okay. So you believe that was part of the investigation?
I know it was.
And are you aware of Sergeant Biller communicating to those companies about Mr. Dewitte's transgressions? So
No, sir.
disseminating his criminal information?
No, sir.
So as a manager, if you became aware of a deputy or any subordinate sergeant, anybody telling private businesses about the transgressions of the character of one of their
I believe that was done. I believe that was
appropriate.
I believe that was done in this office.
Okay.
By your lieutenant to Counselor Breen when he came down to make a complaint on. As it was told to me, the complaint was going to go away because they were going to tell basically the attorney looking for a word, what the bad guy was, or bad. And I said, how you doing that? I said, you can't show them they said they were just going to explain to them his character. And that was, because that.
How did you become aware of that? What conversation?
Well, I got a complaint, I believe, or I got a call from either Dewitte or from the Carpenter that there was a complaint coming down from attorney, I think it's Breen, and I might have talked to Dewitte on the phone, and I said, what's the deal or whatever, and he said, hey, we're gonna take care of it. We're gonna have. I think the lieutenant down here sat down with him when he came up. The way it was explained to me, like I said, it was told to me, was they were going to explain to him that his client wasn't the greatest person in the world, and that and the ending of that was, I was told, Bream said, I was just asked to drop it off. I'm not making a complaint. And walked out.
Okay.
And that's a video of something happened up in Lake County or something.
Okay. And that was a complaint that
it has nothing to do with this, as far as I can. Yeah.
But so as far as Sergeant Bidler going to these businesses and speaking to the character of somebody that they do business with, do you feel that that's appropriate?
I don't know that he did that.
Okay. Well, if he did do it, if there's an accusation that he did do it, do you feel that that's appropriate
I wouldn't.
For a deputy?
No, I wouldn't say that it's appropriate.
Okay.
Yeah.
In other words, if it was done with the intention of disrupting
His business,
Mr. Dewitte's business, would that be appropriate?
Well, I don't see a problem with telling these people that what he's doing is a violation of almost every traffic statute in the state of Florida, and that he's not, licensed, bonded, or whatever. I don't see a problem with that. I think you're looking out more for the business than you are, Mr. Dewitte and
so if it's specific to traffic.
Yeah, that what he's doing is not, running red lights, stopping people. He's violating traffic statutes. I don't see that that's a problem.
Okay. What about if he's passing on information that Mr. Dewitte had raped somebody in the past and things like that?
Oh, I don't know that he did that, but I don't think a deputy can talk about anybody's criminal history, can they? I don't know. I don't see a problem with telling somebody, yeah, he's a convicted felon.
Okay. From your discussions with and I know you said they were brief and they mostly occurred after the arrest, specific to the March 23rd incident. But did Sergeant Bidler or Corporal Ramsey make any statements regarding their history with Mr. Dewitte and how that may have impacted or influenced their decision to make a physical arrest on that day?
There was a conversation in the major's office a few days later with Ramsey and me. And I took that conversation to be the major warning Ramsey to stay away from Dewitte and Metro State. And when the major was talking about this, Ramsey looked at me and goes, well, you know, I interviewed him. And I thought the major was a little put back by that. He didn't know that. Yeah, whether he did or not, I don't know. What was the question?
Well, did either of them make any statements that their history with Mr. Dewitte had impacted their decision to make an arrest? Basically, like, you know.
Oh, I know where I was getting with that. In that conversation, Ramsey made a statement to Major Hosey that they had been told by Austin, and now I'm taking this from what I heard him tell the major, had been told by Austin that if they saw Metro State going down the road with their gun belts on with what appeared to be a gun in their holster, they had probable cause to stop them. And Ramsey even went on to say, I question that, just that stop. And Ramsey said that they were told by Austin that they had probable cause to stop them if they looked like they were carrying a firearm. And that statement was made. Okay.
So Ramsey made the statement that Austin Moore told him he could stop them if they saw them.
If you saw them on the road, it looked like they were carrying firearms, which you know they ought to do. So that was made to Major Hosey. And
so you can stop them. Corporal Ramsey's impression from this discussion with Austin Moore is that you can stop them.
You had probable cause to stop them. Well, I don't think that we didn't go into that part of it.
Okay.
But because I know Ramsey even questioned, you know, the legality of just stopping somebody on a motorcycle with a gun strapped to their hip or whatever. But you know, here's the thing: everybody assumes with Metro State that those are just pepper ball guns. But you don't know. That's the problem. And I can tell you that the citizens out there in Orange County don't know that that's a pepper ball gun. When he's, you know, pounding on the hood of their car and all this stuff, they just can't.
I guess where I'm getting to is that all these things that I've mentioned, calling the insurance companies, disseminating information to Mr. Dewitte's businesses. You know, Sergeant Vidler, I know you said you didn't watch the body camera of the traffic stop, but he immediately or at least calls out to Jeremy as he's conducting the traffic stop. He's calling out to Jeremy. It almost some of these things give the impression that it's almost like a personal thing. Obviously, Sergeant Vidler and Jeremy Dewitte know each other from their interactions, and so it almost seems like it's personal. Would you agree with that?
I'll just put it this way: Keith Vidler's a pit bull, and when he gets onto something, he usually, you know, he continues. And I think that's why Sandy Carpenter gave him this assignment when this all came up. And he's tenacious. But as far as the traffic stop, I don't think Keith Vidler would go out of his way to just go out of his way to do something with Dewitte unless he had what he believed were charges.
Okay. Do you know of any ill will between that Sergeant Vidler or Corporal Ramsey have towards
Not that I'm aware
Mr.
of.
Dewitte? So, to your knowledge, has there been? I know you kind of alluded to it or mentioned it, but what were the standing orders when it came? Other than for you to call the captain, were there any orders to not stop Metro State or to not interact with them, or what was the standing orders?
Metro State, when I was a cross trainer years and years ago, and I think Krantz was in the unit, Metro State was doing the same stuff. The unit had been told by Krantz at the time, now this is all hearsay and talk, leave them alone, let them be. Then And I even had to ask Ramsey, I said, how did this get started with Metro State again? And he says that Sandy Carpenter got blocked by him and then brought it up and a few other things. And then Dewitte was new. They got talking and everybody seemed like, yeah, these guys are violating the law every day. Let's shut it down. And I think that was kind of the start of the whole thing. I think what really got it rolling was, I think it's Mahoney from Narcotics got mixed up in one of their funerals. And I don't know if you've watched the videos of their funerals.
Yep.
If you get in there, he'll beat on the hood of your car. He'll hold on to his gun, his pepper ball gun. And Mahoney called OPD. OPD got there, called Viller because they knew he had dealings with them before. And Viller, there was 4 of them there, and Viller says, anybody check to see if these are all handguns? Mm-hmm. And they took them, and the one guy was carrying a handgun. And that's the guy, he had a Class C, I think, if I got my letters right. And they arrested him for carrying a weapon. And I don't know what the charges were on that. And that was kind of where everything started rolling. They started with statements from Mahoney and his wife. They were in fear. Mahoney said he didn't pull his gun, but the guy's got his hand on his gun. He's got his kids in the car and everything like that.
Yep.
So
I'm
that's
familiar
kind of
with
how
that
it all
situation.
started.
And that's so to your knowledge, that's kind of how it kicked off again.
Yeah.
So was there any most recent orders?
There was nothing. I even asked Major Hosey this when I was in there with Ramsey. He started alluding, stay away, and to Ramsey. And I looked at him and I said, we have told the whole unit, and this was like a few days after the arrest. I said, we just told the whole unit to just ignore them unless they're doing a capital felony or something. Just go the other way, basically. And I said, but why couldn't that have been told when they wrapped this investigation up by someone up above us and said, just leave them alone until the cases are cleared out? And that was never told that I know of to the agent, to the unit. It was never told to me, and I never told it to my guys because I don't know that it was ever passed down that we weren't to do anything with Metro State. They were speeding, blocking roadways or anything like that.
Okay, so that was after the incident. So at the time of the incident, on that day, what was the standing order regarding Metro State?
There was none. Okay. That I know of.
If you saw them committing a crime,
traffic infraction, whatever, yeah, you can
take action. That was
right to take.
Okay. All right. Let me ask you this. You kind of just talked about the incident with Mahoney and that arrest back then. And one individual was arrested for having an actual firearm. One Metro State individual was arrested for having an actual firearm. The other ones did have
pepper ball guns, I believe, yeah.
So I guess I'm trying to figure out. Sergeant Vidler was there that day, and
he was called by OPD.
And but I believe it was Sergeant Vidler, right, that said, "Hey, has anybody check these guns?" And
yeah,
and
that's what I understand. Yeah.
Once he learns that they're pepper ball guns,
the 2 guys with pepper ball guns, I believe, they I don't know what they did with them, what OPD did with them, but Vidler arrested the guy that was carrying a gun, and then he's the one that said, "Hey, I'll give you information on Metro State."
Okay.
And I kind of, that's what kind of started everything. But
so if they were carrying pepper ball guns that day, I'm trying to figure out what changed between that day. It's not a crime. Sergeant Vidler didn't arrest them for carrying the pepper ball guns that day, or any other time that he's interacted with them, and then on this day,
you gotta ask him.
Carrying a pepper ball gun.
I have no idea.
So I'm just asking, to your knowledge, did anything change? Any discussion?
Other than the pepper ball gun he had, looked like a real firearm as opposed to a pepper ball gun with the CO2 cartridge sticking out the bottom.
Okay. To your knowledge, has there been any discussion about Metro State carrying pepper ball guns in the past that you've been a part of prior to this incident?
Well, I was working I was working the Citrus Bowl, whatever it's called, Camping World Stadium one day. Metro State was running a funeral down 441, and they were using their sirens and their horns to take the intersections. I was at the Camping World Sergeant Dillon at the time, he's a lieutenant now, stopped one of the cars and right on the one-way on the south side of OPD headquarters, and I went down there to back him on it. It was a female, I don't even know her name, refusing to give driver's license, refusing everything, just being a real nasty person. And he took a picture. I think he was just going to, get rid of her, but she was still blocking the intersection. Dewitte showed up. He got there. I went up to him and I said, she's either going to produce a driver's license registration or she's probably going to go to jail. So he started telling her to do that. But prior to Dewitte getting there, when she jumped out of the car, she's in a uniform facing me and Dylan. I went to do the L. She jumped back, and I really thought she had a firearm on her. And then when she turned back, I could see the little silver cylinder. But I'm telling you, I thought she had a real firearm on her. You cannot differentiate those guns from a real firearm. They don't have any coloring on them. They have nothing. And the only way you could differentiate was that little silver. And we've all said, he's going to do that to somebody in the wrong time, and he's going to get blown out of his sock.
Yeah. To be fair, though, could a real gun have that notch on it as well?
Well, I see more real guns with just flat bottom.
Right, but could it?
I guess it could have, a real gun could have orange on the top, so it looks like paintball.
Correct.
Yeah. So.
Have you ever seen Mr. Dewitte carrying a pepper ball gun?
I had that on that day.
Okay. And he didn't go to jail for that day?
No, he wasn't even. Nobody went to jail. He wrote, Dylan, once he got her information, he took a picture and then sent them on their way. He wrote her a bunch of tickets in the mail. And then I think he was at headquarters demanding to see Dylan during the game.
Okay.
So.
Any reason why he didn't go to jail for carrying the concealed weapon pepper ball gun?
Because we know it was a pepper ball gun. Everybody assumes it's a pepper ball gun. And when you turn them around, you can see the cylinder sticking out the bottom.
Okay. So to your knowledge, nothing changed other than that notch. Is that what we're saying? That
well, it isn't a notch. You know what a
yeah.
CO2 cylinder looks like?
Yeah.
On most of their weapons, it stuck out of the bottom about an inch. You couldn't tell it if I'm standing straight on. You had to actually go around back so you could see the side of the weapon, and you would see that sticking out.
Okay. All right. I think that's everything. Is there anything else that you know about this investigation you'd like to add?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. All right. The current time is 11:37 a.m. and that concludes this interview.
All right, that's going to wrap it up, guys. If you want to support the channel, you can go to GoFundMe and support the Metro State FOIA Relief Fund. Thank you again, Sarnell 76, for the support. I really, really appreciate it. And please like, share, comment, subscribe, and I'll catch you guys on the other side. I'll keep this up for a couple hours, okay? Not sure if I'm going to keep it up, but these are most of, not most, but a good majority of you. In fact, I think all of you are people that really support the channel. You guys come here often, comment, subscribe. You guys do all that fun stuff for me. So I really appreciate it. Just want to say thank you. And if you guys don't see this in the future, then you got a little glimpse that nobody else did. So thank you so much, guys. I really appreciate all the support. Have a great day.